So the final attack I'll be talking about today is the phantom storm. So this is a distributed denial of service attack, and the goal of this attack is to have the attacker induce other hosts in the network into actually performing the distributed denial of service attack on its behalf. So what actually happens here is that the benign hosts in the network actually end up being responsible for the fallout of this attack. And this attack will essentially affect the performance of the controller and the forwarding devices, and the actual network throughput, or the available network throughput in the network, and potentially the hosts themselves. So the way this attack works is that the attacker will essentially perform the phantom host scan against multiple targets in the network repeatedly. So the attacker then induces a large number of responses to the phantom host, and by doing this causes the controller to be flooded by these responses. And the controller will then in turn flood the network with these responses. So by having the controller flooded with these responses, the controller's performance will essentially be diminished. And by having the controller flood these packets throughout the network will end up being congested and the available throughput should decrease. And as well as that, any devices in the network, for example, forwarding devices, will also end up being flooded, so they will also be affected by this. So to test this, we implemented this on a test bed using a tool called Mininet. So Mininet is used to spin up a virtual sort-defined network. And we tested this against the floodlight controller. So the floodlight controller is a popular contemporary controller. So we tested this as well for when the network has 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50 hosts. So when we implemented these hosts in the network, we evenly distributed them across these two forwarding devices. So, some results from our tests. The top two plots you can see here show the degradation of available throughput before and during the attack. So the green bars here indicate before the attack, these are the benchmark, and the reds are during the attack. So the left plot here is for a link over a single forwarding device, and the plot on the right hand side is for a link over two forwarding devices. So as you can see in both cases, as the number of hosts used in the attack increases, the available network throughput drops. And this is expected because as the number of hosts used during the attack increases, you would expect more traffic to be generated, and therefore more congestion should occur. And the more congestion which occurs, the less available throughput there should be in the network. So the bottom left-hand plot here shows the round-trip time for packets with no existing flow in the network. So by looking at the round-trip time for packets with no flow in the network, what we can understand is how the controller is performing, because this round-trip time includes the time taken by the controller to install flow entries in the network. So as you can see, as the number of hosts used in the attack increases, this round-trip time also increases. So this indicates that the controller's performance is indeed being affected by the flooding caused by the increased number of hosts in the network. So the final plot here shows the round-trip time for packets with an existing flow in the network. So, so these packets are traveling through an existing flow, and what you can see here is that the mean round-trip time is relatively consistent both with the benchmark and during the attack. Now we actually expected this because of the fact these packets are traveling through an existing flow. It means that they are essentially going to be the most difficult to actually affect because they have minimal interaction with network components. However, what you can see is that as the number of hosts used in the attack increases, the standard deviation actually grows as well. And what this is actually caused by is jitter. So as the number of hosts used in the attack increases, the traffic is experiencing a greater variation in latency. So this shows that as the attack intensifies with a growing number of hosts, the network is becoming more and more unstable. So to conclude, what we showed with this work is that common SDN functionality, so functionality which exists in modern SDN controllers, actually introduces vulnerabilities into the network. So we were able to develop a new way to perform arc crash poisoning by leveraging these, and which can be extended to perform a man-in-the-middle attack. And we were able to also design two brand new attacks, being the phantom host scan and the phantom storm. So clearly a reconsideration of the existing network functionality in modern SDN controllers is required to ensure that future networks and future SDN networks aren't susceptible to these types of threats. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.